When I was younger, I wanted to make as much money as I could for as little effort as possible. It's called being a dumbass, and it's the American dream. So I did what any normal college student would do, and I turned to online trading. Little did I know, I would soon be swept up in one of the greatest pump and dump schemes of my generation. I lost not only my money, but my pride. All over a stupid sponge. A sponge that somehow managed to fool an entire country, from billion-dollar sports franchises to TV networks to a 20-year-old version of myself. This is a story of American greed, of deception. This is my Spongetech story. In 2009, I had a friend in college named Eddie. One day, Eddie told me about Scottrade, a brand new online trading platform. Using it, he had already made a couple $1,000, so naturally, I was intrigued. Eddie was particularly excited about this company called Spongetech. Effectively, they just made sponges that came pre-soaped, which, mind-blowing. They had products for your car, your home, your dog, and they even had Spongebob Squarepants sponges. The company was apparently crushing it, advertising with the biggest professional sports teams and forecasting a fiscal year of $40 million in sales. And the best part? Spongetech's stock was trading at only 7 cents a share. That's right, a penny stock. As a penny stock, Spongetech wasn't legally obligated to disclose detailed financial information.
Is this stuff regulated, or what are you doing here?
Now that should have been my first red flag, but like I said earlier, I was a dumbass. In my mind, it was the perfect deal. All the stock had to do was gain 7 cents and I would double my money. It was a no-brainer. I purchased 10,000 shares for $714.
6 cents a share? Come on, who buys this crap?
Well, honestly, mostly schmucks.
Now in 2007, Spongetech CEO Michael Metter and CFO Stephen Moskowitz decided that Spongetech wasn't going to be a legitimate company. Instead, it was going to be a pump and dump scheme. That's when a company uses deception to inflate their stock price, then sell all of their shares and run off with the cash. Moskowitz knew that in order to do this, though, he needed Spongetech to seem like a credible brand. So he turned to professional sports. The Great Recession hit sports teams hard. They were desperate for advertising revenue, and as a result, they welcomed little-known Spongetech with open arms. Moskowitz pounced. From 2008 to 2009, if you turned on a sporting event, chances are you were going to see a Spongetech ad.
And you have a new sponsor this time, right? Things just seem to be going well for you. We're growing all over the place. It's really great. Spongetech.com came on board last night during qualifying even. So,
really? Is that a Spongetech sign where you caught the ball? It sure is. Look at that.
They're everywhere. It's America's cleaning company,
Sports teams weren't the only victim, though. Spongetech obtained the licensing rights to produce Spongebob Squarepants sponges from Viacom. They did this because they assumed the association with the lovable and extremely profitable Nickelodeon character would make them seem more legitimate.
There's soap and happiness in every bubble.
And it turns out they were right. Investors and business groups like Madison Square Garden assumed the connection was legitimate, and worse yet, that it was somehow an indicator of Spongetech's future earnings. In reality, Viacom was licensing SpongeBob like crazy. If you had money, you could license the character. On the surface, Spongetech seemed legitimate, but it wasn't. In the end, they would all be left with over $10 million in unpaid royalties and invoices. Once they had advertising and licensing deals in place, Spongetech flooded the internet with sponsored editorial that promoted the company as a burgeoning business. Stuff that seemed like legitimate financial analysis, but in reality was little more than an infomercial for the stock.
And we are on track to do $40 million this year, and we just told the street, and we're telling you that we think for the year that ends May 31st, 2009, that we are going to make around $7 million on $40 million in sales.
That is incredible.
They actually paid people to go into investment forums and Facebook groups and push the stock. The result was that Spongetech quickly built a cult-like following online. A massive group of people were focused on a single goal: promoting the company and raising its price. Who would have thought that speculation could be driven to dangerous levels simply by manipulating an online community? I wore these simply for that moment, so I'm going to take them off now. But, as we all know, what gets pumped must get dumped. And in the fall of 2009, there was a reckoning. In early September, at the women's semifinal at the US Open, Serena Williams got what she thought was a bad call, so she voiced her displeasure. The result? She was penalized match point and lost. It made for great television. And as the replays ran and ran, what do you think was in the background? Oh yeah, look at that respectable, well-known, trusted brand. The moment caught the attention of New York Post journalist Kaja Whitehouse, who was quietly investigating Spongetech's 900% revenue increase. She started looking for proof. And guess what? She didn't find any, because it didn't exist. On September 17th, 2009, Whitehouse's article hit the press, and the dominoes fell quickly. 1 month later, the SEC suspended trading of Spongetech. Ironically enough, this only increased demand for the stock. People mistakenly assumed that the shutdown meant that they were missing out on a great deal, not that they were being saved from a fraudulent company, which is like just the most American response ever. In May of 2010, the SEC filed charges and the company declared bankruptcy. As it turns out, they didn't have $40 million in sales. They only had 10,000.
Well, I am always saying clean up your act, you know?
The sponge was dry. My $714 were gone, along with 52 million other dollars. After the collapse, one analyst marveled that so many people had been misled about the prospects of a soap-filled sponge. I've thought a lot about Spongetech, more specifically my $714. Here's what I've come to realize. The notion of opportunity will always be exciting to humans. The gold rush was exciting. GameStop was exciting. Cryptocurrency and NFTs are exciting. That's not to say that those things are without merit. Rather, the principle remains the same. It's very easy to get swept up in the idea of getting rich. It's very easy because deep down, we love risk. We love the idea of doing nothing and gaining everything. It's why we love gambling. It's why, despite movies like Boiler Room and The Wolf of Wall Street and The Sponge Squeeze, which someone can option and I will write it, we will continue to be duped out of our money by people like Moskowitz and Metter. Because at the end of the day, we will continue to be greedy. We will continue to seek out what is too good to be true. We will continue to be human. And it's important that we remember that. Every month or so, I get a letter in the mail. A letter from TD Ameritrade, which bought Scottrade in 2017. You see, my Spongetech stock is still frozen. I cannot sell my shares, which means technically I still own them. And TD Ameritrade is legally obligated to send me mail about my dumb account that I cannot close. Every so often, I get this painful reminder of the stupid decision that I made. And I'm glad that I do. I'm glad that I learned my lesson when I was still a dumb kid. When the money, while needed, didn't ruin me. It didn't keep my kids from going to college or keep me from owning a home. I'm glad I'm reminded of the extent of my greed and what can happen when I disregard common sense in the pursuit of it. Michael E. Metter and Stephen Yehuda Moskowitz never went to jail. They never paid back any of the money. They stole $52 million from hardworking, naive Americans like myself, and they get to live normal lives. As awful as they are, though, it's not entirely their fault. Because if it wasn't for people like me, they'd have no one to trick. If it wasn't for my greed, they'd have nothing to take advantage of. There's an old saying, if it looks like a duck, quacks like a duck, and claims to be doing $40 million in sales, it's probably still a duck. Greed does not lead to anything worthwhile. I know this because every month or so, I get a friendly reminder in the mail.
The part that I enjoyed best was when all the children gathered around wearing their medals and took a picture with SpongeBob. It's something they'll take home and remember for a long time.